If you've ever sat in your doctor's office, listed all of your symptoms, and then walked out with nothing besides the comment of you're overweight, you need to walk more, this episode is for you. Today we're talking about the piece that most hormone content skips completely, which is your identity. What happens when your body starts changing and you don't recognize the woman in the mirror anymore? And why so many of us have been trained to accept dismissal as the final answer. Today, my guest is Tracey Willingham, a licensed clinical social worker and the founder of That Hormone Girl. She spent 25 years in healthcare before bringing that clinical training to hormone work. And she's less interested in supplements and protocols and more interested in how you function compassionately while your body is changing, how to advocate for yourself when your doctor dismisses you, and how you stop chasing the woman you used to be and really start to support the one you're actually becoming. So let's dive into this week's episode. Ever wonder what the hell is happening with your hormones? I'm Kate Nguy, certified women's hormone health practitioner and cycle syncing strategist, and this is What the Hormones, where we decode PMS, perimenopause, burnout, and the chaos of midlife with real talk and real strategies. Whether you're here for hormone insights, expert conversations, or just need to know you're not alone in this, know that you are in the right place. So let's cut through that confusion and jump into this week's episode. Well, today I am super excited to have Tracey Willingham joining us. Tracey and I met on a panel like a month ago, I think it was. About a
Yeah.
month ago, maybe 2 months ago. And right away, your energy out of the gate, I was like, I need her on the podcast. Um, so for those that don't know who Tracey is, she's often referred to as that hormone girl. And I think that's a big lead into like where we're going today with our conversation of like, no holding back. Here's the real talk. We're going to get into just the realness of hormone health and the experience that us as women we go through that it gets so dismissed or just missed, I would say.
Yes. Agree 100%. I'm so excited. I loved it because yeah, sometimes I'm a little too much, I think, and I'm like I got to reel it in. So, yeah, I love when people are like your enthusiasm was great. I'm like, "Okay, 'cause I sometimes it's too much."
I thought it was perfect. I was like,
Okay,
I think I
great.
need her to be my friend. So I'm gonna force her to be one of my friends.
Okay.
Yeah, so no, it was excellent. And so Tracey, you were a social worker in a previous life, which is kind of funny because so was I
Oh, I
way
love
back.
that.
I wasn't there very long. It was a career out of university, and then I was like, oh, holy crap, this is gonna burn me out.
Yes.
And I pivoted. But I love that you stayed there for a
I
while.
did.
And I love that that really kind of comes into the work that you do with women. And a big part of the work that you do is identifying the missing piece that is happening in hormone health or hormone education right now, especially for women that are truly seeking support.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, when I was like choosing, so social work was my second career. And when I was choosing it, I was like, maybe I should be psychology, maybe I should do this. And then I read about this, the whole premise and the whole practice of social work being like the person in the environment. And and really breaking that down, all it means is like you can't change the person without considering their environment and the changes that might need to happen in that system. And I just love that because I thought, how many times does our system help a person individually, but they go right back to the system, the environment, their home, the friendships, and things don't change. And so when I saw that, I was like, social work all the way. Now, when I saw the pay scale, I was like, this hurts. But I mean, it was, yeah, it felt like home as soon as I worked with my first client. So as soon as I started my own business, I was like, I'm bringing this perspective to the hormone field.
So let's talk a little bit about what that looks like for you. What is bringing social work into the hormone field kind of looking like?
Sure. So, that was one of the things, of course, any good business coach would tell you, like, find how to separate yourself out from the masses. And I quickly honed in on, well, this does set me apart. And so, I tried to force myself into like what other people were doing. And then I was like, you went to school, like use that. And so a good chunk of what I do throughout the day is I call it mapping. And mapping can be really huge in different fields in social work, but it's really looking at the individual as a whole ecosystem. So tell me about your support system. Tell me about your work, your past traumas, what your symptoms are, what's your family like, what's your support system. So I make a huge map. And then we find the key things in there that need to be addressed, the mental health. And so, like, exactly like you said, I spend a lot of my time looking at this more from just physical symptoms of hormone health to complete identity, complete ecosystem. And so once we figure out what we're doing, then I work with women to say, okay, we see this in the part with your family, not a very strong support system. What are the things we need to do to implement that so that some of this identity work that comes into this, it can be addressed and maybe you can finally make some peace, or maybe somebody finally gave you the words to say what you
Mhm.
need to do to maybe even end a toxic relationship. So, and then of course the social work part of me is anything that I can't do, I refer out to people that I trust and know. And then I also link women to resources. So, if I'm not the one, or if there's more information than just what I have, then that's part of the plan when I work with women. So I really love that I bring my social work perspective to everything I do. And it's in my membership all the way to working one-on-one with me. We're always going to map out what is happening at a big level, and then how do we break that into action steps to make you feel better. And then a big component that I added in, thanks to my social work, I did 15 years as a social worker in cancer treatment. And so one of the big things when I started my business was I was going to help women move through the medical system as well as I could or as frustrating as I could, and then also preparing for functional medicine. So I spend a lot of my times helping women prepare for visits, make sure, they're saying the right words and not just saying I'm tired. So that's a little bit like the fast description of what I love to do.
Yeah, and I love what you're sharing here because one of the big aspects that you do is really about merging this gap or bringing awareness to the gap between understanding your hormones and actually what it looks like when you function
Yes.
with your hormones and the
Yes.
whole identity piece, right? And this is where like somebody who is perimenopausal, I am I'm 45 and I'm in this pivotal moment right now where there is such a struggle with this identity piece of feeling and seeing so much of my life changing,
Mhm.
but it's changing because I'm choosing for it to change. And it
Yes,
makes a lot of people uncomfortable. And it
absolutely.
makes even like when I think of like the medical world, right? Like going to my doctor and saying, like, this is what I'm experiencing. And then in many ways being dismissed or
Yes.
downplayed. And I kind of got a backbone at 45 now where I'm like,
Right?
there's a research article that's
Right.
a little bit harder to dismiss at 45 than I
It
was
is.
years ago. But there's a huge piece right here where women, well, I can only speak to perimenopause, but women in
Right.
perimenopause, we are feeling like there is big shifts happening in our body. We don't
Yes.
understand it. Is this normal? We're going to seek help. And then when we don't get the answers, we kind of get a little cranky.
Oh, absolutely.
And then we're looking at our whole life going, this doesn't fit anymore. Like, why does this
Right.
not feel right anymore? So I love that you're bringing that awareness of the mapping in and looking at how to really explore the whole environment for these women.
Yeah, and a lot of times I'm talking when I try to break it down to women, like let's take it back to something we all might remember. I'll spend some time talking about like this is almost like a second puberty, which is, we're still at the same thing of like our hormones are making us act out. You're questioning who are my friends? Do I want to be in this relationship? What do I want to be when I grow up? What do I want to do in this next phase of my life? And so, but it's not as accepted or as like cutesy. A lot of people are like, oh, she went through puberty and now she's a woman. And you get to this age and we're cranky, we're psychotic, and there's no respect. And
Hmm.
it's just now, we've seen it, just now women are talking about it. But I went to my mom and was like, okay, it's here, perimenopause. What do I expect? And she's like, 10 years of hell, and that's all I know. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, so there's not even any history that we can go back to because our poor moms and grandmothers were just told to go through it. And
Well, I think there was a lack of awareness for them too. Like I even think of my
yeah,
own mom. If you ask her what it was, she'll tell you hot flashes and
yeah.
a really erratic cycle. Like that's all she could tell you. And
Hmm.
now, like being somebody who does this work and works specifically with the stress response and cortisol load in midlife, I
Right.
was like, you were really cranky. And there was a reason for it. Like, it wasn't
Yes.
because all overnight, all of a sudden, you became irrational. It
Yeah.
was because for the first time in your life, you were like, this doesn't feel good.
Yes.
But I think so many of our mothers don't resonate with that. They don't see
Mm-mm.
that pattern. They're just like, oh, I guess I was cranky, or they
Yes.
totally dismiss it, right? And
Yes.
they don't do that connection where there's this generation, like my generation right now, are like, I'm cranky for a reason and I want a
Yes.
change.
Yes.
So like,
Well, and I think you're exactly right too. Like I am bolder in my conversations. Like, I started talking to friends and being like, listen, I am not a cruise director. I'm not always going to be the one that reaches out and plans. Like you're going to make
mhm,
an effort. And in my 30s, I would have been just like, well, that's who I am in the friend group. And now I'm like, do you even deserve to be in my life? And do I want you to go with me after this? My marriage has had its moments where I'm like, I no, unacceptable. Here's some new boundaries. Like it, and yeah, so it just feels like overnight you look in the mirror and you're like, who who is this woman? And
mhm.
then when you do try to tell people I'm perimenopausal, I think some people think it's an excuse or like, oh, okay, and it's so dismissive and it can be very lonely if
Mhm.
you aren't surrounded around other women who are going through it.
My husband made the mistake the other day of saying, because I was saying, this is what perimenopause is. He's like, well, then I think that you need to do some work around it. And I was like, or I
Yes.
think you can maybe look at your behaviors. Like, it was
Yes.
like,
I just
I think my rage, yes, I can have some ownership here, but this
yes.
is a full family change.
I just told a friend the other day, I said, I do not think it is random that a majority of female-led divorces happen in this decade. Because
Yeah.
it's like you just reached this point where it's like, I don't have to be, and I forget if there was a scientist who did a study on it, and she called it the tend befriend. And
Hmm.
so, if you go back to our ancestors, you had to be kind and accommodating so that you weren't kicked outside of the tribe because you needed to be inside a tribe to survive. So women just naturally learned this is my role. I tend and I befriend. And so when I started working with some women, I'm like, you know what? I'm renaming this. Now we're in the roar and restore. Like, I'm going to roar all I want and I'm going to restore my life the way I want it. And it might look brand new. And I'm not
Yeah.
going to apologize for it either. And you may not make the cut. And I'm okay
I'm
with
okay with being kicked out of the tribe.
that.
Like,
I,
I'll go, please. Hands up.
I'm in my years now where just put me in a hut and leave me alone. I'm fine.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's really interesting. Like I've done a lot of training with Miranda Gray, and we talk about the luteal phase and the perimenopausal phase being
Mhm.
that of, and I love that she uses this as the word, like because a lot of you hear wild woman a lot of the time, which yes, it
Yes.
can be wild woman years, but she also calls it the enchantress. And it's like,
Yes.
and when I think of that, I'm like, yes, I just in this stage of life, I want to go into a field, I want to forage mushrooms, and I don't want anyone
Yes.
to ask me a question. Like
Yes. So
just leave me
true.
alone and let me find my mushrooms. Like that's all I want to do.
That sounds
And
amazing.
that's where I feel I'm at. I become the wild woman when you
Yes.
come with me on the forge. Like I'm just
Yes.
like,
Yes. That is so true. That is so
yeah.
true.
And
Yeah.
so
And
there's
I
a
think, it
difference.
is. I think that's why it was so important to me when I started my business that identity be a part of it because I remember I looked in the mirror one morning and I really did not recognize my body. Like it looked weird. And when I mentioned it to some of my friends, they were like, girl, like, are you sure that's not another mental illness? Like, I've never had that. And then, when I started then getting my trainings and certifications, I realized no, dysmorphia is part of this. It's so wide. I mean, if you want to get like really down and calculated, like I think I came up with like 200 possible symptoms that can appear.
Hmm.
And a lot of times you only see commercials or people talking about like hot flashes, can't sleep at night. But there's not this discussion about, I don't even know who this woman is in the mirror anymore.
Yeah.
And what does my relationship with her look like, even withstanding all the other people out there? I don't even know what I am to me anymore. And we need to normalize that.
Yeah, and I think like touching on this body image stuff right now, I think this is where, at least in my experience, I shouldn't speak for
Mhm.
everybody, but from my experience, I think this is where the medical field
Yes.
really mistreated me
Mm.
and has absolutely in the past 4 years made it so that I don't even want to walk. Like
Yeah.
I have some abdominal pain. I'm like, I probably should go get that checked out. And I'm like, no, I don't
Mhm.
want to see my doctor. Like I'm literally in this spot where it's not even fear. It's like I don't
Mhm.
want to go there and be
Yeah.
talked down to.
Yes.
And the last experience that I had, it
Mhm.
was just that. It was
Yeah.
you're overweight according to the BMI index. And I was like, I just had a third baby at
Right.
40. Like, my
Right.
body's going to need time to recover. And then
Yes.
I was told, you need to walk more. That was like her
Wow.
only suggestion for me. And I was like, and then
Just
like
that.
I've now had all these years of training. And like, part of me is like, you missed everything. You missed that the weight gain wasn't because I was being lazy and not walking. The weight
Yes.
gain wasn't because I was eating potato chips on the couch. The weight
Right.
gain was because I had 3 kids under 5 at 40
Yes.
and my cortisol load was through the roof, and
The
you
roof.
never even
Yes.
tested it. You
Yes.
never looked at what was happening with my nervous system.
Mhm.
It wasn't until I found a naturopathic doctor that was like, you know what? Let's not worry about your weight. Can you just do yoga every day? Like, can we just
Yeah.
start to like work on the nervous system piece
Yes.
and see what
Yes.
happens?
I
And so,
love all
like,
of that.
I really hated going into the doctor's office, and the first thing that she could tell me, like,
Mhm.
she checked my signs, she checked my blood pressure, she checked my weight. She not
Right.
once asked me about my menstrual cycle, not
Mhm.
once asked me
Yes.
about my stress load. And her first recommendation to me, or first statement to me was, you're overweight. And then the second was, you need to walk more. And for
I'm so
anybody
tired of
that,
the eat better, walk more.
yeah,
That's so dumb.
yeah. And if anybody sees me, like, yes, I'm not a twig, but I'm
Right.
also like, when you hear the
Right.
word overweight, it
Yeah.
really especially for women. Like
Yes.
we've been put in this silo of seeing that we have to achieve this one version of ourselves. And
Yes.
the amount of shame I walked out with,
Yeah.
even though my brain was like, you're postpartum, like, just forget what
Right.
she said, it's really
Right.
hard to shake it off.
Yeah, it
And we're
is.
talking 4 years later, I have not walked in that doctor's office because I
Mhm.
don't want to hear what she's going to put me on a scale again. And I want to take that scale
Yeah.
and smash the damn things.
Yes. Well, and that's what I spend a lot of time like talking about with people is we are at a medical crisis because it is expensive to go the functional medicine route, or
Hmm.
it's time. Like, I made an appointment to go and talk HRT. It's in August. I booked it back in March because that was the first opening. So, but I'm lucky. I'm lucky I can afford that. And then I have women that I coach and they're like, I need to use my insurance. And I'm like, I got it. But also like let's temper our expectations. If you have a great doctor, wonderful. I'm going to add him to my referral list, but that list is very small.
Yeah.
And yeah, same thing. I knew I've always had a thyroid problem, and I had one
Hmm.
doctor who diagnosed it correctly, and then he retired. And so I had to go to a new doctor. And when I put that paperwork in front of that doctor, he actually threw it physically back at my body and said, "You don't have any thyroid problems."
I was told the same thing. And I do have a
Yes.
thyroid problem.
Yes. I mean, there's no respect for the human being sitting in front of you who's living inside this system.
Hmm.
I need to check things from a textbook. Oh, and by the way, you were one chapter in that textbook, by the way, about female health, which was very lame. So
Yeah.
yeah, I sit there sometimes and I'm like, I know more than you at this point. And not even from like a condescending, but like, can you just show me some respect? But yeah, it's so frustrating and same. I mean,
But
it's just like, why waste the money to go to a doctor who's not going to listen?
isn't it really frustrating too to know that both you and I, we've done similar training,
Hmm.
and so we're both educated in women's hormone health,
Yes.
and knowing with our education going in to see these physicians and being dismissed or being gaslit or
Yeah.
belittled,
Yeah.
it wears on us, and we have the knowledge. Like, what happens to the woman who doesn't have the
Doesn't.
same level of education and goes in there
I
and
know.
accepts that as their final response? Like,
Yeah.
how much that hurts my heart.
Yes. I've been
Like,
very fortunate. I've got to go on a couple of visits here locally. It was a service that I kind of offered to some of the people I knew where I was like, I will go with you to your doctor's appointment. I want you to do most of the talking, but I'm there if they start saying something wrong or there needs to be a moment to push back and I see you're not going to do it, I'm going to do it. I'm going to say, hold on, we have some questions about that. And I've had some doctors be like, who are you? And I'm like, it doesn't matter. The patient has allowed me to be here in this visit, which is that's all it's required. So we don't need to know who I am. Please focus back on the questions. And so we haven't had like any Disney, slow clap moments where we're like, we did it. We changed the system. But I at least feel like when we leave, I've seen the women shift a little bit about like, one, now I know how I can talk in a
yeah,
doctor's exam room. I'm like, you absolutely, you're paying for this. Would you go to Target and let a Target employee treat you this? Absolutely, you wouldn't. You would at the very least say, I'm not going back. So why do we let our doctors? Absolutely not. But I also see some of their confidence come back. Like, okay, so I am feeling what I'm feeling. I didn't make this up. And so I feel like that's at least a win when we get out into the waiting room and I'm like, how do you feel? And they're like, well, I didn't get the answers I wanted, but I saw how I can say things in the future. And I'm like, that's a win for me. Because
yeah.
if enough of us, I told a friend the other day, I said, if 40 million of us showed up at the doctor, all of us pushed back and all of a sudden unacceptable, some things would change. But most women don't even have the basic understanding that you can push back. I didn't know until I went into social work and I was like, oh, wait a minute. Especially with cancer patients, I was like, no, no, no. We need to back up and ask some questions. So
Well,
it's
and they
really
also don't have
frustrating.
the nervous system regulation to be able to do it. Like,
No.
for myself to go in there, like I literally sat in the room waiting for her to come in, doing nervous system tools because I could
Yes.
feel myself start to already preemptively prepare
Yes.
myself for what was coming. And
Yeah.
so like when you also are, our nervous system is at capacity, which it becomes in perimenopause. Like, this isn't
Yes.
because you did too much or you said yes to Nana
Right.
and you should have
Right.
said no. Like, this is a biological thing happening with your stress
Yeah.
resiliency and those
Hmm.
shifting hormones. Thank you,
Yeah.
estrogen.
Yes.
It
Yes.
becomes a thing. And, it's interesting because, I haven't pushed back too much. Well, I pushed back for myself a little bit in
Right.
perimenopause, but not significantly. But with listening to you talk about how you supported clients, it does bring me back to when I was pregnant with my first and my second daughter, because I got a diagnosis of an incompetent cervix. You got to love these diagnoses for
Wow.
women, right? Like,
Wow. What
you
in
have an
the world?
incompetent cervix.
Oh my gosh.
Way to empower me through pregnancy.
Right?
But
Oh my gosh. That is.
essentially, I could go into labor at any time prematurely and my baby wouldn't survive, right? And so with my first daughter, that was enough to scare the shit out of me because
Absolutely.
I already had so many losses, and
Hmm.
the fertility journey was like years, like it was insane.
Right.
And so to hear that, it was like, I'll do whatever you tell me
You
to, I'll
say.
follow the rules. And so I was on bed rest and I followed those rules. And I went every 2 weeks for an ultrasound, and every 2 weeks I go into an anxiety panic attack because I was like, what's the results going to be on this ultrasound? What's it going to tell me of
Yes.
how close I am to delivery, right? Like,
Right.
it was just always bracing for bad news, right? Always
Mhm.
bracing for like, you're going to lose this baby.
Ugh.
And then when I actually made it to 38 weeks all on my own, just on bed rest
Right.
and defying the rules of like, or like rewriting them and showing that
Yeah.
it is possible, like all of this prep that you guys did to prepare me for loss, yes, I followed the rules, but I also brought in what I knew at that time. I was only a yoga therapist, so I brought in what I knew about the pelvis and
Yes.
about like what can I do to shift my energy and hypnosis and all. I brought in any
Right.
tool that might help.
Yes.
But then when I got pregnant with my second, and I knew I was gonna have the same condition, the
Hmm.
doctor was like, you know what? Listen, you got to come in for an ultrasound every 2 weeks. And I was like, listen, we've done this song and dance before. The first
Yep.
time you convinced me because I was in a complete fear state. This
Yes.
time, I know I have the ability to do what I
Yes.
need to do. And
Yes.
coming in for an ultrasound every 2 weeks, all it does is make me stressed
Hmm.
and worried. Plus, I'm sitting in a hard chair for 2 hours and you're waiting
Yeah.
because you're behind schedule when I'm supposed
Yeah.
to be laying on my backside. Like,
Exactly.
so I was like, let's do it once a month. And he was like,
Yeah.
I don't feel good about that. I'm like, but what's it going to change? At the end
Yeah.
of the day, if the ultrasound shows that I'm going to go into labor in the
Right?
next week, you can't do
You
anything
can't
to
change
stop
it.
it.
Yes. So
The
what?
train is going in the tunnel. Like you can't do anything, right? So all
Yeah.
it's doing is it's helping you prepare for the case that might happen, but you can't change the outcome.
Yeah.
And so I'm telling you that my nervous system can't handle that. And
Yeah.
I'd much rather put myself in a place where I am relaxed, where
Yes.
I am putting my intention towards keeping baby in
Yes.
versus preparing myself every 2 weeks for panic.
Yeah. Versus paying for your lake house
Yeah.
because you keep seeing me. Absolutely not. No. Well,
Yeah.
and
And you know
it's
what? He in the end was like, yeah, you're right. You know what? If this is what you need, you made it the first
yeah.
time. I trust you. But it was a conversation I had to have. But I was so secure and like that's what I wanted that it was really
Yes.
easy for me to be like, you're not convincing me.
Yes. And again, to your point earlier, like, and if women don't know that they have that right, it is frustrating. Yeah, I had a client the other day that I was looking at her stuff and I'm like, can you explain to me why you were just put on anxiety meds? And she's like, yeah, I've started with heart palpitations and this and that. And I'm like, okay, this is a normal part of hormone health. I said, so did you want to be on it? Or do you have a
Mhm.
diagnosis that would say, okay? And she goes, well, no, I just went in and that's what he put me on. And I was like, okay, no. I'm like, anxiety is normal. And there's some that needs to be medicated, but this is always the first line response. I'm having heart palpitations, this, that. Oh, here, take this. And she said, and she goes, it's so true, Tracy. She said, I feel very flat. But she said, but I know the instant I come off of it, it didn't fix anything. It kept me flat. And so we're working through it right now where you're going to go back in and you're going to talk about your options.
Mhm.
And some of that might be, I don't want to be on this medication. And you're allowed to say that. They can't make you take it. So,
And I think that's important for women to know is that you never have to take a medication. And this is not a thing against medication. Like there are people
right.
that they
Yes.
want it and it works, right? Like
Yes.
HRT is a medication. You can
Right?
take it, you cannot take it, right? Like they're all medications. The difference is that sometimes we go into these and we feel like because that was the only thing put in front of us that we have no
Yes.
other option and we have to do it. We have to be the good girl
Yeah.
versus challenging them a little bit about, okay, that's cool. Thanks for suggesting that, but what else are my options, right? Like putting it
Exactly.
back on them of like, what else can you give me?
Yeah.
Because we see this with birth control, antidepressants,
Yes.
and anti-anxiety. We're and once again, I do think there's a place for women that benefit from all of these, but I
Absolutely.
also feel that this shouldn't be the first words out of your mouth when a
Yes.
woman says, I'm experiencing something, and be like, you know
Yes.
what? This is the solution.
Exactly.
Like as a doctor, you need to probe a little bit more about like, well, tell me more about that. Like
Yeah.
what is, and I get that they only have 10 minutes to see you, but there should be more than one option that you're always given at
Right.
any time.
Yes. Yeah, because I told somebody the other day, I said, my mom is on heart medication. So yes, please take that. That's good.
Mhm.
You need it. But, yeah, agree 100%. Like at the very least, could you present three options and
Yeah.
let the woman decide? Like, and if they want the medicine, I'm like you, go for it. But if you don't want to be on it, or you want to try something else first, you
Yeah.
have that right. But yeah, she was like, I'm nervous about telling him I don't want to be on. I'm like, I'll go with you. And I'll make it clear, like, we don't want to be on this.
And that's
So
what I find interesting is where did that happen in our trauma
yeah,
where all of a sudden the people that we're most afraid of standing up
yeah,
to are doctors.
yeah,
They were always supposed to be our ally. They were
yeah.
always supposed to be our healers. And somewhere along the line,
Hmm.
they have become the person that we are most afraid of.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, quick pause here because I want to tell you about something that I personally use and recommend all the time to my clients. If your hormones have you confused, like you're trying to figure out what's happening with testosterone or if you're possibly heading into perimenopause, Mira is my go-to device for tracking and testing hormone levels at home. It tracks 4 key hormones. It tracks your estrogen, your progesterone, your FSH, and your LH. It's lab grade accurate, and you get to see your hormone patterns in real time. That means you can walk into your doctor's office with actual data, advocate for yourself, and get the support that your body actually needs. I've partnered with Mira now so that I can get you 15% off your first time purchase. This is a purchase that you can do towards their kits or even just their test wands. Just use code 2SHE15 at checkout or click on the link in the show notes below where the coupon code has already been put in for you. This is one of the best tools I know for taking the guesswork out of your hormones. All right, let's get back to this episode.
Because I've heard so many of my clients that are going on like functional medicine visits, and they're like, one of my clients had a 2-hour visit, and she's like, Tracy, 2 hours, and she said, but when I left, I had a full plan that addressed my gut, my mental health, everything. And I thought, so see, it's possible, but it's also not lucrative. They don't want everybody giving 2 hours. They want those 10-minute appointment slots. So yeah, so it was so interesting. Again, she felt so heard and supported. And she was like, and I have lots of options. She was like, let's try this. And then if that doesn't work, let's try this. And then if that doesn't work, maybe some medicine. So,
Mm-hmm.
it's out there, but yeah, I agree. It's like I feel like it's like medieval days. You have to go into the woods and find the witch inside the cabin to treat you, is
Mm-hmm.
what it feels like. And I'm like, how are we still doing this? Like it's medieval days.
Well, I agree, but I also think that a part of it is that she's right in your backyard, but you just got to have lots of money.
Yes, yes.
Like she's really not hiding. It's just that there's a huge
Right?
price tag with it.
Yeah.
Because like I'm in Canada, so I'm not in the States, so it operates a little bit differently here. So our healthcare is provided and covered. And so many of us, that's why it's our line of defense is like we're just going
Yeah.
to go to the doctor because but the thing is like we have such a lack of doctors and our medical
Mhm.
system is crumbling right now. And
Right.
it's because, in my personal opinion,
Right.
is medicine hasn't been trained on how to
Mhm.
support wellness, right?
Yeah,
We're
not at
always
all.
doing the reactive care. And so if we
Mhm.
keep doing that, people are going to keep coming back and
Yes.
the funnel gets too full, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Versus really tending. And this is where like in Canada, if you want that tending, if you want to be one of the people that, can get out of it, is that
Right.
you have to go see a naturopathic doctor.
Yes.
And they're totally discredited here. Like, it makes me so mad
Hmm.
because the
Hmm.
support and the way that my health and my children's health has shifted by having that form of care
Yeah.
has been fundamental, right?
Yeah.
Like, I do not burden the healthcare system because of the support that I receive.
Receive.
And
Yes.
but I have to pay for it out of pocket. And then it gets really frustrating. Like I just went to go see my naturopathic doctor and I was like, we're at that year mark where I need blood work
Right.
again. Like, and I don't need it. I like to
Right.
have it because I want to
Yes.
see what's shifting every year.
Right.
And she was like, I can't do a rec. We're not allowed to in this province. So you're gonna have to go see your doctor for that. And I'm like,
Oh,
oh, I hate that argument because
yes.
like now it's like I don't even want to go to my family doctor. Like I've already
Mhm.
shared, like I avoid her. So then it's like I go to a free Medi clinic,
Right.
but then I have to wait forever. And
You're
then
right.
I often feel like I hate to say this, it's gonna sound bad, but I can bully him a little or her a little bit more into what I want because they just are
Yeah.
so at capacity. They have so many people in the waiting room that they're like, let's just get you through. So,
Yeah.
like,
What
a
do you want?
perfect example is when I wanted my testosterone tested, and they're like, testosterone isn't a hormone that affects women. And I'm like, I call baloney on that. And I have a toddler here, and we're gonna stay here as
You're
long as
right.
needed until I get my blood work requisition that says I can get my testosterone tested. And he's like, fine, here it is.
Can't put testosterone is not, no,
I
sir,
know. But I feel
sir.
like that way with my thyroid because that's the one I'm
Mhm.
concerned about, right?
Yep.
Because TSH says that my thyroid is it's borderline,
Yeah.
but not
Yes.
enough for conventional medicine to do anything about it. But
Right.
if I ask a doctor to get my T3 or my T4 tested, it's
I
like a
know.
hell no.
Yes.
That's not necessary. I've been told so many times it's not necessary.
Yeah, I can't get anybody. That one doctor I had, he tested it.
Yeah.
And I felt so, I had never had so much energy, the weight was coming off naturally. Like it wasn't like overnight. It was like, I mean, and I was able to go to the gym and do the things because I had the
Mhm.
energy and I felt so good in my skin. I mean, it was when he said he was retiring, I was just like, what can I pay you under the table to just let me come to your house? Like, and exactly what I expected happened. You know, my healthcare fell to pieces when he retired.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really it's frustrating and also like empowering at the same time when I work with women to be like, you have so many rights, and I am so honored that I get to tell you how to kick
Yeah.
open those doors and demand what you need. And you can
And don't
still
be
do it with
afraid of it.
kindness. Yeah. You don't have to be sassy like me. You can do it with kindness. We'll put it in your communication form, but you've got a lot more rights than you think you do. The
And
other
I
day
think that's
I was at a doctor.
sometimes,
It cracked me up because he asked me something and I was like, "Yeah, and I'm experiencing this." And his response back to me was, "Well, I don't have a box to check for that." And I was like, "That's the problem. You're basing my healthcare off a medical software that you all bought, and now you're clicking boxes. And because I mentioned something and it's not there, you don't know what to do." He just froze. He was like, I don't have a box." And I was like, "Oh, I'm going home. This is a waste of money."
I love it. But this is what we're seeing with perimenopause. And for people that are listening to this, this is something that awareness has been brought around. It's not changed. I hope it's
Mhm.
going to change. Is
Yes,
that they're starting to see that you cannot support a woman through perimenopause in a 10 or 15-minute session. And so that they're
absolutely.
looking at a way to create a new code so that way it gives doctors more time.
Yes,
Now, once again, it might be there, but
right.
it's teaching the doctors that they can actually utilize it is another thing,
Yes.
right? And so,
And I think that's the thing is like, I've seen a few clinics in some cities where they get it, they get it. Like the one I'm going to, they have a social worker for mental health, they have a dietitian, they have a breath work specialist. So they get it. Like, yes,
mhm,
this doctor will see me for physical, but I need you asking about my identity and mental. I need you to ask about my food support. I need you to teach me breath work. And so it's very rare. And, so that's the other frustrating thing is women will come back to me and be like, well, I got all this stuff and I'm on HRT, but I don't feel 100% better. And I'm like,
yeah.
that's because we have identity and a lot of other work to do.
Yeah. And it's really beautiful that you're able to demonstrate that for them, that there is this other pillar that we have to work
Yeah.
through. Like it's not just when we look at symptoms, the
Hmm.
symptoms impact the full body. And
Yes.
so, you can address these symptoms with pharmaceuticals, with other resources and tools. But the identity piece, the shifting identity is so huge,
Yeah.
especially
Yes.
in midlife.
I had one woman that was like, well, I'm on estrogen and all this, and I thought my stomach would get better. And I was like, what I knew from the assessment was she does not handle stress well at all. And I was like,
Mhm.
Estrogen is only going to do so much in your body. We've got to work on your stress, how you respond to it, and how you need more coping skills." But, she really thought that was going to magically fix it. And so, but I was like, that's why I'm so glad I'm here because I can say, yes, you are good that you got on HRT and good that you got estrogen, but yeah, you didn't resolve everything. We all are carrying a lot inside these bodies.
And to any woman listening to this as well, like if that it feels like your story, know that that's not anything of a fault of you. This is
No.
how we have been trained
Yes.
to believe that medicine, it's always a quick fix, right?
Hmm.
Like you have a
Yes.
symptom, you take something, it completely goes away and everything resolves, right? And if
Yes.
it doesn't resolve, then you add another thing onto the mixture
Yes.
and then it fixes it. And so I know
Yes.
this was a hard thing for me to learn is that the true healing doesn't come rapid. The true
Mm-mm.
healing is kind of like an
No.
onion. It's like when we get to layer after layer, and like every
Yes.
layer that gets revealed and then
Yes.
resolved, a new level
New.
of joy, of, life expectancy, of like a
Yes.
feeling like your old self comes through. And each layer, you get more and more of that. Like it's almost like we juice
Right.
up the battery every layer that we get through. But it's
Yes.
not as simple as just being like, here's this, and you're going to feel better. But I know even as a child, that was how I was always trained
Oh,
to
yeah.
believe, right?
Yes.
Like you just take something and it will mask it long enough for you to feel better. And
Well, and
so
that's,
it's,
when I talk about the US healthcare system, I always talk about how I understand why they set it up the way they did, but I'm like, you can't get your body looked at. Like if you're having
Mhm.
headaches, go to neuro. If your uterus hurts, go to a gynecologist. And it's like you look at my body in pieces and you don't look at me as like, what is my brain doing to my uterus, doing to my gut? I
Mhm.
need you to not just look at one area. And then, you're not in the same healthcare system. So if I don't bring you previous notes, you're not even looking at what someone else diagnosed. You may not even know what they're telling me treatment wise. So
Yeah,
it's that really frustrates me in our system where I'm like, can you please stop looking at me as a part and look
yeah,
at me as a human being and a whole ecosystem?
yeah. I totally agree. We are so close to being at time, and I
Okay.
want women that are listening to this to kind of walk away. Like, it's been fun complaining about
Right.
the medical system. It's been great.
Right.
But I want them to walk away with something. And so I would love to ask you, in your opinion,
Mhm.
what are some pieces of advice, maybe like your top 3 to 5 that you give women that have been feeling like they're being dismissed by their doctor? Like, how do you help support them for that next
Sure.
appointment?
So I think the first thing I always tell my women, this was a sentence that I got years ago, and it's something I say in the moment to just ground myself, is it doesn't have to make sense to exist. And I
Oh,
think when you're being dismissed left and right, sometimes you need to just sit in your car and say, it doesn't have to make sense to exist. It may not make sense to you, but I know it exists. And so sometimes if you can just even tell your system and your body that, it
yeah.
really does help in the moment. Like, you're not magical making up crazy things. I think the other thing is what I tell a lot of women is, kind of like what we spoke about here, but what I encourage the women I work with is you need to see your doctor's appointment as like going to school, and you need to do your homework and come in with that research paper ready to go. A lot of times what I do with women is I help them set up a one-page summary. So here's the top symptoms. Here's what I've tried. Here's the data. My cycle used to be this long. It's now this long. My hot flashes happen 6 times a day at these times. And because I feel like some doctors will respond when you give them
Hmm.
something other than just being like, I don't feel well or I don't feel
Yeah.
right. So getting women to see, yeah, you may have 10 to 15 minutes and you've got to make them count. So do your work before. And then the last thing I would say is if you know one that you're not going to speak up for yourself, take someone who will and take a note taker. If you get really overwhelmed, a lot can be thrown at you in 10 to 15 minutes, especially if you present with a lot of things. So it's really just know your rights and
Hmm.
prepare for this just like you would prepare for a course in school or, planning a wedding. Like it's going to be the same thing. So, and, don't get flustered in the visit if they want to hurry you along. And a lot of times we'll rank our questions like we've got to get these 3 answered today. And
Hmm.
then if there's time, here's what I would aim for next. So yeah,
Yeah.
put some time on your calendar to really get ready for that appointment. If you know your periods are weird, if you know you're having weird symptoms, try your best. Just put it in the note app in your phone. You don't have to be
Hmm.
fancy. I love fancy gadgets. You don't have to. But I think it's harder to dismiss you when there is data in front of a doctor, or it at least gives you enough to say, look at what I gave you and don't give me that answer. I want you to look at it again. So, but yeah, it doesn't have to make sense to exist, friends. If you feel
Yeah.
miserable, if you feel like you don't like your life and you want to, implode it and change it, you get to. We've got a lot of permission and a lot of rights to do what we need to do because we got one life. So let's
Yeah.
do it right. There's no do-overs.
One thing I would add to your list that I used to always tell clients that were doing on the fertility journey at the time was always, and this, I think in the US, this is like, yeah, that makes sense. But in Canada, because our healthcare is covered, we don't always think about this, or that our healthcare is covered. We don't always think
Right.
about this. But medicine is a consumable. We are
Mm,
consumers. And so
yes.
if you don't like the response you get, you're a consumer and you have every right to go to the next shop, right?
Yes.
And so
Yes.
Even in Canada where, it is paid for under whatever provincial umbrella you're under, it doesn't mean you have to stick with that doctor. It doesn't mean
Yes.
that you have to go to that doctor.
Yeah.
You can get on other wait lists
Yeah.
while still being with the one that you don't want to be with anymore, which is my
Right.
situation right now. I'm on a few wait
Right.
lists. um,
Yes.
or you can just go to somewhere else
Yeah.
and get the responses that you need. Like you
I
do
told
not
someone the other
ever have to
day,
accept it.
I told someone the other day, I said, you have the right to fire your doctor. Did you know
Yeah.
that? Just like if a manager would fire a bad employee, you can fire a bad doctor. It's that I said, and I've actually used that terminology on
Yeah.
the table where I'm like, you're fired. I'm not coming back here. I'm like, and they don't care. They're like, oh, okay, and move on. I said, but for me in that moment, I
It's
needed to hear a
empowering.
voice in the room to say, you're fired. You're done.
Yeah. It's just empowering because it shows them that they crossed a boundary, that
Mm,
it wasn't okay what was done or what
no,
was suggested or the lack of suggestions, right? So,
right.
oh, Tracy, I knew this was going to be a good conversation. I am so glad we had it. My
I
heart
am
is
so glad.
full.
As soon as we went on that panel, I agree. I was like, we're going to be best friends for life. I might even just move to Canada so that we can hang out because yeah, because I felt it. I felt that instant sisterhood and that gumption of, we're going to change the world one
We're
woman
going
at
to
a
change it.
time.
Yeah, no more of this. It's so funny because I was actually doing some research into hormone replacement therapy, HRT, and what I really want to do, it's not offered in Canada, it's only offered in states. And I'm like, okay, so what state do I have to get a vacation home in so that I can get this covered?
Yes.
Where do I
Yes.
have to go vacation once a year so that I can get
Yes.
this covered?
You
So,
know, that's so smart. Maybe we should start these village like
yes.
vacation homes where we all pitch in and then that way we can help out our friends across the borders. Like, yeah, I think
Yeah.
you're onto something.
Yeah. Let's just get like these visiting addresses that we can seek healthcare.
I
I love
love
it.
that. That's so good.
Oh, well, Tracy, thank you so much once again. It was such a great conversation, and I am so glad that you shared all of your wisdom with us
Thank
today. It
you.
really did give a new lens to what we need to demand for
Yeah.
as women for our
Yes.
healthcare.
Nobody else is doing it for us, so we got to do it ourselves. And we got to
Yep.
we got to go back to the old days of sisterhood where we got each other's backs. Because
Yep.
that's where we're going to see the change.
Yep. I agree. I agree. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And anyone who wants to connect with Tracy or learn more about the work that she's doing, go check out all of her links. They're in the show notes below. If you're sitting here thinking, okay, but which hormone is actually causing my chaos? I've got you. Head to the show notes and grab my free quiz. What hormone is running the show? It's your first step to understanding where your body might need some extra support. And honestly, it's kind of eye-opening. Link is in the show notes. Make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you next week. Until next time, remember, you deserve to feel good in your body, and together we will figure it out.